So here we are at the Conduit Club in London. We're talking about the partnership journey in 10 steps, and we get to number 7. Now, I think, Stephen, we've been fixating for the last 30 years about partner collaboration. You've been at this game for much longer than I have, but I'm not going to ask you how many years. I'd like to be controversial because we're at the partner retreat and there's a slide about collaboration always. Well, there's always 2 slides, isn't there? The first slide is someone in finance has put together for each of our major clients, how many departments are we working with? And we look at that and we say, oh, that's really interesting. For some of our major clients, we only have 2 departments out of our 8 working for them. And there's always that second slide, which is, I think we should try harder, which is if we were to do this a little bit better, we'd make much more money at this. But do you think that we're right to focus so much on collaboration, or do we just admit that the majority of the partners are rewarded or motivated around the remuneration model, which isn't actually encouraging us to collaborate in the way that we should be to increase profitability in the firm?
So I think we've probably got our mutual friend, Professor Heidi Gardner, to thank for this word. Collaboration has now, as you say, become compulsory to put on every slide and to build into every remuneration system. I think I would argue that we've just given a new name, new word to something that was already there in many well-run law firms, many successful law firms. Yeah. We just didn't call it collaboration. We called it partnership. Yeah. We're in partnership together. And as we know, and we've mentioned a couple of times in this podcast series, a partnership is a coming together of people to pursue a common goal together. Yeah. So that's embedded within the concept of partnership law firms and partners.
Okay. So what's going wrong then? What's misfiring? Because according to a head of finance, we have a huge opportunity here that we're not benefiting from.
So it could be that we've got the wrong culture, that we're not encouraging our partners to collaborate, to use that word, to work together. We may have a remuneration system that is wrong, in the sense it is driving individual behaviors rather than team-based collaborative behaviors. So if we think there are benefits from our partners working together, and each firm needs to decide that for itself, then we need leadership, we need reward systems, we need a culture that encourages that behavior. I mean, I think when I joined the profession, I probably thought about it of working in teams. You know, if we were working on a big M&A, of course you needed a colleague from the tax department. Of course you needed a colleague for what was then the real estate department, because all those skill sets needed to come together to deliver the best advice to the client. And it wasn't called collaboration. It wasn't called cross-selling. It was how do we deliver the best result for the client, given the skill sets we have in the law firm. And I think at one level, we need to get back to that client centricity of how we deliver a law firm, which involves collaboration. Yeah. So collaboration for me is a conduit, is a route to delivering something for the client. And the client should be our focus. How can we do the best work across a whole range of specialisms to our client? And the more specialisms we deliver to the client, the more successful we will be, the better the client relationship will be, the stickier the relationship will be.
So we have this tragedy when at some stage the leadership of the firm go on the program and they realize that their partners should be collaborating. And then they come back and they try and introduce programs to achieve that, only to realize, perhaps rather frustratingly, that their partners have their own individual practices. And one of my learnings over the last 30 years working with law firms is that when we talk about a firm, some of them, the majority are still groups of partners with individual practices that are sharing overheads in their business. And that horrible frustration for the leadership trying to bring everyone into this, the economies of scale that are available and the benefits of collaboration, and the sheer tempted to say bloody-mindedness of a group of partners that have their own practices. Do you think it matters if it's not a firm? And do you think it's possible and sustainable for partners to develop their own individual practice? Or is the world changing to such a degree that those individual practices are not sustainable going forward?
So I think it is hugely dependent on the type of firm. I think there are many firms that in effect would only survive if they were that sort of individual partner model, because they're a one product firm or a one product group or department, and that there is no cross-selling to be done. So, most high street solicitors, in a sense, struggle to have that multi-faceted relationship.
Just to be clear, moving from the high street to the main street, those independent firms that are tier one in chambers are struggling to do the same thing. So as firms have increased specialization and now they're moving towards hyper-specialization, if I'm a corporate partner, of course I'll pass you the finance work. There's no doubt there. But if I'm the new partner number 20 in the corporate department, am I going to share work with others? Or more importantly, are we expecting our more senior corporate partners to help me develop my practice and to share work with me? Or am I only being made a partner because I'm supposed to bring in new areas of work or new clients, which is the expectation in the majority of firms that we see?
I think the dynamic in the larger firms that actually helps answer your question is that many of the jobs are so large, they have 2, 3, 4 corporate partners working on them, taking maybe different parts of the job, but working as a partner team to deliver that mega transaction. So actually in those larger firms, collaboration is very much being driven by the size of the job and the demands of the clients. It's the firms further down that need to be, I think, more focused on collaboration to see the value of having 2 partners involved rather than one, both from the building multiple relationships with the clients, but also ensuring that a job is done to the best of the firm's ability. And that may involve having 2, 3 partners working on it, particularly from different specializations. Because you were saying, oh no, it's taken for granted the finance work goes to the finance partner. Oh no, it's not. In many firms, particularly some would argue the more eat what you kill firms. If I'm getting 10% of my revenues, I can be a finance lawyer. I may be a corporate lawyer at heart, but a loan agreement's a contract. I can do loan agreements. I can do a bit of employment advice. I become, somebody who's prepared to do anything for this client because I get 10%. And again, that's an extreme of a remuneration system. But in many firms, partners who are concerned about their numbers aren't sharing the work that should be shared with specialists.
Regardless of whether they eat what you kill or not.
Yes. And therefore, I think the challenge for those firms is probably even more necessary that they get collaboration going, because I call it dabbling. If we've got partners dabbling in areas where they're not the specialist, then that's dangerous for the firm. The client's not necessarily getting the best advice. It could be a lawsuit waiting to happen. It could be damaging the firm's reputation. So it's much more about, isn't collaboration nice? It's how to properly organize a law firm and the work that it does.
I love that word dabbling. Everyone will be reaching for their online dictionaries. No? Another expression I hear a lot is have a go hero. Yes. Very, very English language expressions. So we know the issue. We see it. We don't like talking about it, of course, because it is the biggest challenge. How are we solving this? Is it a metric to solve it, or is it culture? Where are we starting?
So I think it's culture supported by metrics. I think there are some good metrics that you can use, but you were referencing, how many departments does the client use? I think that's a good baseline metric, but it isn't the answer to everything. And you then need to look at, who owns the client relationship? And why is the client not using us in multiple? There may be a perfectly good reason for it. So those metrics are indicative. They're not decisive in terms of oh, and as a result, we should remunerate that partner in this way. So I think metrics can help, but I think it is about culture. I think it's also about risk management, as I mentioned before. It's making sure that the partners with the right skill sets are giving the right advice. So I think risk management has an important part to play. But ultimately, this comes down even more than culture. I think it comes to leadership. It's, are the leaders of the firm ensuring that this firm is sustainable and fit for the future by ensuring that we've got partners working together to achieve the greater good for our clients.
And then let's feel sorry for I agree with you, but let's feel sorry for the leadership. They're looking at their partners who are out in their separate canoes on the lake, paddling in separate directions. Because I would have said to law firm leaders 20 or 30 years ago, it doesn't matter if your partners are in separate canoes, because you just have to recognize that and understand why they're in business together. However, with the increasing cost of delivery and the margin squeeze, if you have got bigger as an organization and your partners are still in canoes, you're in a difficult situation. You're having the higher costs of delivering legal services without the benefit of collaboration. And those are the firms we see which are in a very, very difficult situation, because the bigger you've got as an entity, still having people in their separate canoes is incredibly difficult to change.
I think also the client voice has got much louder.
Yeah.
I think clients are much more sophisticated buyers of legal services than they were 20, 30 years ago. They recognize the dabblers, to use my term, and they recognize specialist advice. Yes, they want relationship partners who have a degree of being generalists. They can have conversations about other legal areas than their specialization. So they want smart lawyers to talk to. But if that smart lawyer says, I want to bring in my tax guy because this is a really difficult tax conversation, they say, thank you, that's what I needed. So I think the voice of the client has got louder and sharper. Some partners like to keep their arms around clients for the wrong reasons. Occasionally it's for the right reason, but very occasionally.
Is this only about changing gears? So we're in a fast growth market. We bring in these people. We fight for work for ourselves, and we're going to grow and be exceedingly profitable. At what stage do we have to change gear and ensure that we collaborate? Because we do know very successful firms where the collaboration is zero, but they're making a lot of money, I guess, whether that's success or not.
Well, I think in some of those firms, it is only about money. And we talked about whether that is the only measure of success, certainly a measure of success. But I do think it comes down to the clients, the changing needs of clients, the changing voice of clients. And I think that will impact even those.
So last question, before we finish off on this particular issue, is it fair for clients to ask, how are you remunerating your people, and what are the metrics you use to ensure that they are giving us what we want as clients?
I am amazed how few clients ask that question. And I think every, client who is spending a serious amount of money with a law firm should ask that question, should understand it. And as part of that, understand who their relationship team is and how they are remunerated by reference to the amount of billings that client is delivering. It's the service I'm paying for.